On today's episode of the Vintage Price Market, classic cartoon character Felix the Cat. Felix the Cat debuted in 1919, making him over 100 years old now, predating Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse, making him one of the original cartoon stars of 20th century US pop culture. First up is this really clean plush of him. It's a 22-incher from 1982. Still got that tag. Looks beautiful. It went for $29 plus shipping, January 5th. Now this is an oldie, supposedly from the 1920s. A Show and Hut Sullivan 8-inch wood and leather articulated Felix the Cat, 1925. That went for $150 plus shipping. Wood and leather children's toys seem indicative of the era. Now here's a coin piggy bank ceramic from 1997, so this is into the 90s. $39 or best offer plus shipping. 1989 ceramic mug, Felix the Cat, great condition, 22 plus 10 for shipping. It's his head as the mug cup itself, and he's got a bow tie on, it's red. Now in the world of video games, Felix the Cat on NES is the most renowned. This one's from 1992. Loose, like most NES games are, since the boxes were cardboard. 82 plus shipping. If you want to go right up now and buy it on eBay, you kind of have to wait around for that price. It ranges between 80 and 100, I'd say. Rare, you're really not going to run into it. It was released later in the NES run, and I don't know anyone from my age, my era, that had it. It's more of a collector's gem for retro gamers. What did we learn about vintage Felix the Cat memorabilia? Doing a tad bit of research, it appears he's owned by NBC Universal right now, and they've appeared to have shelved him in recent years. Chances are, when you're about thrifting, you're not going to run into many Felix the Cat things, and if you do, it's not going to be too modern since they don't make more modern nowadays. So it's going to be vintage. So if you do see Felix the Cat, it most likely will be vintage. Always keep an eye on condition, obviously. I even saw that a keychain went for $15 of Felix the Cat from the 90s. So, to recap, stuffed animals of Felix the Cat, ceramic piggy banks, and other different collectibles like that. Hey, it's JBM from Villain News, and time to discuss the official channel rebrand from movie news to vintage collectibles. December 31st, 2011 is when I started making videos on this channel. I wanted to take an angle of discussing movie news of upcoming films in a radio format, talking off with no strings attached to Hollywood. It was the era of trailer reactions, and the only other movie news channel was like Clever News, and they were like a bunch of bimbos in Hollywood talking about movies. At the time, 2011, 2012, 2013, it was a great era of American Horror Story on TV, and still some good reboots and prequels, like the Thing prequel, and that era before Hollywood continued to get progressive by 2013, 2014. Then social media began to deleteriously spread. The pejorative troll became attached to any sort of social criticism at the time. You know when someone takes like the moral high ground in the comments section of Facebook just because they know they're going to get like 10 likes? Critiquing films, excoriating woke Hollywood. That got you community guideline strikes in YouTube. That's when the censorship started by 2014, 2015. I'd get suspended for 6 months, couldn't do any videos for community guideline strikes. I'd get copyright strikes for fair use, what I would determine that at the time, of using posters, but they'd get you with any sort of regulation that they can take you down with. So by 2016, I didn't deem the risk worthy of continuing to make videos and having years of the library gone facing termination. So I stopped making movie news videos. Not to mention the progression of camera work overall, and the use of technology is so more readily available that the horror market is so oversaturated, and with streaming it's just not the same. And now they've shut down most of the theaters in my local area. Disney's acquisition of Star Wars, I really hyped that. I got behind that until I saw the very first trailer where they hyped Daisy Ridley. I knew it was just going to be a propaganda train, so I hopped off that. I couldn't put my heart into that. Luckily, guys like Geeks and Gamers and other channels like The Quartering were able to take over. I don't know if they're controlled opposition, because they make all sorts of videos excoriating Hollywood, just like I used to. And apparently they get to keep their channels, and that's great because they're crusaders along with us here in preserving American culture and the perversion of it by internationally controlled Hollywood. But what about now? I was born in 1987, grew up in the 90s and 2000s, always been a collector and a curator. Remember when the Power of the Force line came out in the mid-90s by Kenner, Star Wars? I wouldn't even open my figures. I thought they were going to be worth money someday. They're still not worth that much money, depending on which toy you got. But so now this channel will be about 80s, 90s, 2000s collectibles, video games, books, VHS tapes, NES, Sega Genesis I grew up with, trading cards. I'm also a huge sports fan growing up in Metro Detroit and in Ann Arbor. I've always been a pop culturist, movies, magazines. What else are we going to cover? Not just collectibles. I'll still touch on pop culture issues. Scream 5's coming out in theaters. T-shirts, pop music, cartoons. I got it all. We're going to go over that in the vintage price market. There's also going to be segments where we talk off the cuff like this. I'm going to try and have guests on. I'm going to call out other eBay and resellers and critique them, because that's the genre I watch now. I used to critique horror movies and comic book movies and books. Now I watch the Phoenix resales and the retro ricks, and safe to say there's plenty of material there to critique. Millennial era vintage collectibles. Enjoy the episodes. I'm going to try to keep them up daily. 10-minute episodes. They may expand in the future. Thanks. Subscribe. Check in daily. 10 a.m. is so you can get it up in the morning, and so you have a chance to watch it throughout the day. This was JBM, also known as Josh, from Villain News. Thanks for tuning in. I can't always attain that fake level of enthusiasm from most of those YouTubers. Happy January 6th, everyone.